Hello all you Viking loving warriors, as always I am Cosmic, and today the time has come to review Expeditions Viking, which is the new top-down turn-based RPG brought to you by Logistic Artists who were behind Expeditions Conquisitor. Now, Expeditions Viking is something that I previewed a while back. I previewed the early access build of the game. I enjoyed what there was for the most part, and I was interested to see how they would improve the game upon launch, because there was a lot of things missing. There was a lot of polish missing, there was a lot of bugs, there was a lot of issues, and I found that the content was somewhat lacking. So let's take a look and see if those things have been fixed. So in Expeditions Viking, you play as a Viking Thane who has recently become the head of his clan because your father died on the shores of the British Isles, and you must first rebuild your clan's power. You must rebuild your strength as a clan. You're able to improve buildings, improve your blacksmith, build a wall, and basically make sure that your clan is able to survive. Once you have done that little half of the campaign, you then move to go and start raiding and head over to things like Britain and, you know, explore these new lands and seek fame, glory, and riches for your clan. All very simple, little bit cliche, very straightforward, everything you would expect from a Viking game, basically. Now, one things I do like about Expeditions Viking is that it is basically zero fantasy in some aspects, in the fact that there's no real, you do have the mythology of the Norse mythology that people believe in, those superstitious things, but there is actually no implementation of that. So there is no mages, people don't have mana, people can't call down Thor's hammer. It is strictly, historical fantasy in that sense. Now, for me, the story, for the most part, was fairly solid. I enjoyed the writing a little bit. I think that it could have been better in places. I think it was rushed. I think that they needed more voice acting in there. And I understand that's very difficult to do, one, with a limited budget game and with the amount of writing that you have. But at the same time, the voice acting that was in the game was really bad, and it was noticeably bad to the point where if you were going to go with some voice acting, better to have it all voice acted with high quality voice actors rather than have limited sections voice acted with pretty bad voice acting. And I would have rather had zero voice acting at that point, because it was cringeworthily bad. In terms of its core mechanics, Expedition Vikings does basically three things well. It has good character development, and while the character progression, especially the ability progression, was not to my personal taste, I can't deny that objectively it worked very well. It was an interesting system. There was multiple ways to progress any given character, although it did have a problem of, one, a lack of a tutorial, and two, you could get your character builds wrong to the point where they were completely ineffective in combat. So you have to be very careful about how you build that character. The other thing it gets right is the turn-based combat. The turn-based combat is very fun. I enjoyed it to the point whereby I thought it was engaging, I thought it was challenging. The difficulty in the game is fairly strong, so I do expect a challenge. If you don't build your character correctly, or you don't make clever tactical choices, you are going to get punished for that, because more times than not, you will be facing down insurmountable odds, and you will be outnumbered. So it's very much a case of you have to play it well, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and play to that. I enjoyed the combat. I thought it was a well-rounded combat system that was effective. I would have liked more abilities, especially in particular for the weaponry. A lot of the times you'll find that each weapon, like an axe, is specialized at doing a certain thing, regardless of how many. Each weapon style, I should say, has a certain amount of abilities that you can unlock. And oftentimes each weapon is specialized in doing one thing. So axes, one-handed axes, for example, are specialized in basically removing shields, which is fine. But what if I wanted to use a one-handed axe to, perform critical hits rather than just removing shields? And the game doesn't really give you that freedom of choice, and it doesn't really give you the freedom to outfit your characters the way you want to, which limits, you know, how you can progress. And it's very much a case of choosing right at the start how you want your character to be, because you can't really afford to switch halfway through. Another thing that I was nice to see was the fact that a lot of the quests that have been put in since the early access build were interesting. They added some content in there, not enough to my standard, and I'm going to tell you why in a moment, because it directly relates to something else. But what was there was interesting. I enjoyed some of the side quests too, and the overall setting of the game is very nice. And that's about it. After that point, you start to see the serious flaws and the negatives within the game itself. First, one thing that has carried over from the preview build is the fact that the game is buggy as all hell. You're talking about crashes, you're talking about menu glitches, you're talking about skills not working properly, you're talking about the UI, 1, not being responsive, 2, showing things that aren't supposed to be showed, or 3, completely bugging out, and then 2 maps after you've finished a quest, that's when the UI will decide, hey, we're going to show you the image of you completing that quest, and then we will not remove that from the screen for the entirety of the map. It is bug filled completely, and it's really disappointing that there's a severe lack of polish in that regard, and it is something to be very much aware of. And while that a lot of those issues might be patched out, it is something to make sure you keep an eye on before you even consider purchasing this. Make sure that, one, if you're going to purchase it straight away, you need to be able to overlook those issues, or if you're thinking about waiting until they're patched out, make sure that they are patched out before you purchase the title. The next is probably my biggest issue with the game, and it fundamentally harms how much fun you can have in this game. In the game, there is a time limit mechanic that will basically give you a game over on the game world upon completion of that timer. It's basically a countdown clock. It's basically a doomsday clock, but it's not a doomsday. And once that timer runs out, that is your campaign over, regardless of how far you got in the story. That drives me effing crazy. Just utterly crazy. For several reasons. One, it artificially reduces the time you can have in that game. 2, it is a really cheap way of covering up the fact that you didn't add tons and tons of content into a supposedly open world-esque RPG, because there's not that all much to do. And so without that countdown clock, you would reach a point whereby you just didn't have anything left to do, and you would realize that there just wasn't enough side quest content and there wasn't enough main quest content. And that drives me crazy. It also really harms the ability to go places and explore the world map, because you can't really afford to do that, because if you did that, you would not get through the main story and some of the side quests. And that really drives me crazy. And it's a really horrible mechanic that I have no idea why they thought that would even be, one, good, and I assume they didn't think it was good. Like I said, I think it's just an artificial way to end the game and cover up for a lack of content, and it's just a mechanic that just really hurts the game in almost every aspect. Now, the final thing I wanted to comment on, which again is also a negative, is the fact that the tutorial is just not good in this game. It does not explain the game mechanics well for people. There is zero explanation for several mechanics in the game, including morale. You don't really get to understand how certain things happen, such as personality traits for individual characters. How are they assigned? How do you get them? And I think that it's very much a case of there are serious design flaws inbuilt within this game. There are design oversights within this game, and overall, while it is and can be an enjoyable title, for $30, it's worth waiting for a sale, if not avoiding completely until they have fixed out the terrible technical performance of the game. I didn't particularly enjoy the aesthetic of the game. I thought that it was not good looking whatsoever. Musically, it was okay. Again, limited voice acting that was there was pretty cringeworthy. I think if you can get over the aesthetics, there is a good game somewhere underneath there. But again, My advice would be, if you're really interested, you love turn-based RPGs like I do, wait for a sale or wait till the issues have been patched out. If you are really on the fence about this and you're not sure if you will enjoy this game at all, I would probably avoid it, because it's just not worth the frustration of what the game brings to the table at this current time. And that is my review of Expeditions Viking. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe and share on social media, and as always, I will see you next time.